Hi, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. So, my name is Jennifer McMillan, and I manage the learning content development team for the Autodesk suite of products. So, our team works on creating content for AutoCAD, Inventor, Revit, Civil 3D, among many others of the products that Autodesk releases. With today's call, I want to start by quickly introducing ASCENT. But then the main focus is I really want to explain an exciting project that we worked on with Duke Energy. This was a great project for us because it actually touched on all of the various aspects of what we can do for our customers, whether you're actually in the energy sector, whether you're in the manufacturing space, architectural or infrastructure design. So I wanted to just really showcase that project for you today. So ASCENT is a division of Rand Worldwide, so that is our parent company. And we've been in the learning content business for over 25 years, where we've been writing training material for different engineering applications. Our learning content is used by software vendors, used by resellers, schools, and corporate clients like yourselves in over 90 different countries around the world. Our entire team is full-time employees, and we consist of content developers, engineers, instructional designers, as well as technical editors. So as a team, not only do we create learning guides, which you'd be familiar with in the form of, training manuals that you would take in a training class, we actually also work with customers to help design as well as implement a customized learning program. So to best explain all we can do around kind of creating those learning content, that's where I really wanted to get into explaining Duke Energy's project. So I'm going to showcase how they worked with us to come up with a learning solution for their substation design teams. So when we first heard from Duke Energy, it was late 2017, and they came to us with kind of two main goals. They were implementing new Autodesk software products across their whole company. And in addition to that, they had spent considerable time in developing in-depth workflows that were going to detail specifically how they wanted to use those Autodesk products from kind of start to finish to create their substation designs. So those were really the two main goals with Duke Energy. In all our discussions with any of our clients with these types of products, we did very much the same thing. We start with an initial discovery call, and basically the goal there is to understand your needs. We listen to your challenges, we listen to your ideas. We do, a lot of fact-finding up front to figure out what it is that you want. We do a lot of listening, and we heard from Duke, and what we really truly understood at the end of that call was they're implementing new software. They were going to be implementing Inventor and AutoCAD Electrical, as well as Vault actually as well. And they were transitioning users from AutoCAD 2D as well as other software platforms as well. So they had a lot of users that had various skill levels in terms of how to use these new software products. With previous training experiences that they had, they knew that they wanted the solution to be very engaging. They wanted it to be focused and consistent. And so those were kind of three main words I always kept in my head as we were working on this project to ensure that we were hitting those goals. In terms of keeping it focused, this was a big thing as well because they wanted to ensure that their users were being trained on exactly the information they needed to know. In terms of consistency, why that was important was they had planned out a phased implementation plan. So they wanted to ensure that during the whole course of their implementation, every single trainee would be getting consistent training experience. So that was also a very big requirement. I had mentioned that Duke had previously spent considerable time designing workflows that were going to be used by their Inventor and AutoCAD Electrical users from the start of their designs right till the end, and when they were made available in the production Vault system. So that also had to be taught to their users. They had multiple roles, so they divided their Inventor users into 3 different roles. as well as their AutoCAD electrical. So they had 6 different workflows in the end that needed to be taught to their users. And then they realized at the end of it all, you needed to have a vault, a production vault that was accurate and designed properly. So they wanted to ensure that their users actually understood everything that had been taught before they were even given access to that production vault. So they wanted to create some type of an evaluation that would ensure that as well. After we listened and we heard all of these types of challenges and wish list items, we came back to them with a first solution. So ultimately we divided it down into 2. So we'll start with the first one, and it kind of checked off the first 2 boxes of the items here. And ultimately this dealt with transitioning all of their users to learning the Autodesk tools that they were going to be implementing. So the solution here dealt with referencing and using our existing ASCENT training content. So they had experience with ASCENT before. They knew that we created great training materials. So they wanted to leverage that information as well in training all of their users. So just to kind of give a high level of what our existing or standard offerings involve, we create training materials, so whatever the delivery method is, where we're teaching instructional topics. So we're teaching the how and the why you're going to be using the tools. In addition to that, we have practice exercises as well that are embedded into all that content so that students can practice. So they need to practice. They need to be hands-on with the software as well. So they have provided with data sets to do that. And at the end of each of those topics, there's also review questions to ensure that that learning has happened. They understand the topics. So that's kind of our standard offering. All of that standard offering that we offer to all of our clients can be delivered in a number of different ways. We have learning guides, so these can be purchased, online. You can deliver them in hard copy, that traditional training guide that you get, or ebook format, which we're seeing a lot of customers using now as well. And then as well, we have all of this content available in a self-paced environment inside of an online learning portal. And our portal is called Productivity Now, and all of our courses are also available on there. So this is kind of our standard offering that, we went back to Duke with and decided to let's leverage all of this information. Now, in terms of their wish list item, in terms of keeping it engaging and focused and consistent, staying focused was the big one, and that's where I wanted to start with our discussions. And with that, what I want to discuss is how we customize this kind of one step further for Duke. So there's a lot of training content here. Venture specifically can be, 15 days of training. A lot of the topics in there, Duke Energy didn't need. So we were able to customize the content down into only what they needed to know. And with that, what we decided to do was present all of this information within that Productivity Now portal. So we created a custom tenant for Duke Energy themselves, so they're the only ones that have access to this. And we created training material inside of each of that would be for electrical, for Inventor, and it really only focused on what they needed to know. So we really broke down all of that content that we normally would offer standard-wise down to much less time. In addition to that, to keep it kind of engaging and so that students could actually see some progress and be excited about it, we actually even further broke down the courses into smaller chunks. So we used kind of that university formula of 101 level courses, 100, 200, 300 level courses, and we created smaller chunks where students could actually, at one sitting, sit down and actually go through content quicker and faster. In terms of the actual presentation of the material, I've got a couple screen grabs here. You can see on the right, this is the learning portal, and this is just a screen grab of some content. So it's instructional content that can be read through. In addition, we have exercises. So just like our standard courses, students can go in, download the files, and do the exercises. And then what What I really liked here, and I showed this on the left here, is a video. So keeping that engaging component. One of the big challenges with an online learning or self-paced learning is having those varied medias. So having those videos embedded in there were something that were really important to Duke Energy to keep students engaged so they could watch, not just read. So that was kind of how we solved those first two wish list items in terms of, getting everybody up and running with AutoCAD Electrical, Vault, as well as Inventor. So this is kind of our standard training that we customized a little bit for Duke. So then that left us with the last three checkbox items. So those remaining challenges where it was focused all around their workflow. So this is where we created custom learning content for Duke Energy. And this was all specific to their substation design workflow. So all of those 6 workflows that they worked on to refine and get it down to something very, very detailed, we then wrote custom material to teach that. The focus there was all around, the Duke way. What's key here is that Duke did not want to teach any software skills training in this portion of the material because they wanted the students to have already taken that. They really wanted this all focused on just their workflow. So how did we come to kind of the solution and what was the end result? When we first started having meetings with Duke, they provided us with 71 different files that they had written and detailed every single step that they wanted. So they'd done a lot of pre-work here. And they provided all of these files to us. So myself and all our team here, we reviewed all these documents so that we understood what the process was. We spoke with their subject matter experts, a lot. We asked lots of questions. And then we came up with detailed outlines as to how, we wanted this to shape out and really look in the end. The process was very consultative. We worked very closely with them. Often we had meetings daily. There were demos done by Duke. We recorded those videos so that we didn't miss anything, any information, anything key. We then worked with those outlines that we developed, and we created exercises around their process. One of the other thing that was really key is Duke provided us with their data set. So they had a substation design that they had created when they did their pilot project, and they knew how they wanted this to shape out. And so we used that design, and we were able to use those models for both Inventor and the electrical training. So in the end, what we ended up with were 6 unique workflow learning guides. We had one for each of the different roles. Those 71 documents, which were amazing and had, everything they needed to know to do it. We wrapped that up in explaining that in about 1,400 pages. So definitely a lot of work in terms of what we ended up with here. Also found, just in terms of the content itself, just to give you some examples internally in the book, we use their data set, so I mentioned that. All of the content is actually all exercise-based. So they didn't want any kind of instructional content where students actually had to sit and just read through it. They wanted their users hands-on, working with the software, going out, and the other key thing was going out and learning where their standards were located, which standards they actually should be looking for and learning and knowing. So, we have lots of references throughout these books with where they should be going to get answers to those standards. And one of the really nice thing in the end with that was that, it helped also reduce the number of support calls that the management team got because it was very detailed. It had lots of explanation and lots of imagery in there as well to what they needed to do. And again, we didn't include any skills training. We didn't include any how they should be assembling components, any of that. It was all just focused on their workflow. For this portion of the project, so with the skills training, we delivered all of that in our Productivity Now portal, and we gave access to the Duke team to run reports, set up users, those types of things. For this portion of the project, what they wanted to do was actually host this all on their own internal learning management system. So ultimately, the deliverable for this portion of the project were Word files. So we delivered all the Word files for these documents, as well as PDFs and the graphic files, so that their LMS team could actually import all of this information into their systems. So I mentioned kind of in the skills side of things, they really wanted to keep things engaging and consistent. The same thing held with this training as well. And to kind of solve that portion of the puzzle, we created a lot of presentations. So all of this was going to be online learning. There was, that phased implementation plan. There was, varied locations, geographic locations for all of the trainees. So, having an instructor-led training class was just not going to be possible all the time. So what we did here was we created presentations and recorded videos. And all of those recorded videos were replacing that voice of an instructor. And that then gave us the consistency. Nobody was left to interpret what was being taught because there was a demonstration, there was a video that they could watch. So there was kind of two types of videos that we created. One was more kind of instructional, which kind of introduced the topic, introduced the standard that they needed to refer to. And then the second one was straight up a demonstration of the exercise that the students were going to complete. So this would be just like you were in a training class, and the instructor would demonstrate the process and demonstrate the exercise and what was going to be done. That was included in there as well. So we had those 6 training guides, 145 presentations and recorded videos as well. And again, all of those files were all given to Duke Energy, and their LMS team implemented and put that all into their own learning management system. And finally, that last checkbox item, which was all around, how do we verify that the trainees actually understand the workflow? We created 6 different assessments. These varied in between 25 and 30 questions for each of the different roles. So there was 3 for inventor and 3 for AutoCAD electrical. And these assessments were solely focused on the workflow. There was no questions about how you do something in Inventor or AutoCAD electrical. It was simply around the workflow so that it could verify that they truly understood things like naming conventions, the paths that they needed to store their files in, whether or not iParts should be used, whether or not, the types of view displays are set. So all of those little things are all in these assessments, and then they truly, once the trainee has taken that test, they can say, yes, they passed, and they would be given access into their production vault system. So over the last half hour, I've really showed you a lot of what we did for Duke Energy in terms of implementing and helping them with this learning program. And ultimately, what we did for them really fits perfectly into what we tell all our clients we can do. So just to quickly summarize this, we offer many different levels of customization that can help you target your learning. The first step past our standard content, which is, our off-the-shelf training guides, would be to customize it at the topic level. And this is exactly what Duke did. So they wanted to focus their training material only on what their users needed to know. And so that's kind of that topic level customization. Past that, we also, for many clients, do practice level customization. And here, what this is referring to is we incorporate your models into the practice exercises. So our standard content explains the tools, the how, the why. But some customers like to take it one step further, and instead of doing just our standard exercises, they want to practice on their own model. So in some cases, we then customize our guides to create custom exercises that would be familiar to your users. Workflow customization is kind of our next level of customization. So this is where we're basically weaving your processes into ASCENT standard content. So we still would start with our standard library, but throughout we might weave in things like notes, references to standards. In some cases, we might create custom content that includes the workflow, like a detailed explanation of it. We might customize the practices a little bit to be more specific to your workflow, that type of thing. And finally, unique. So this is kind of our top level of customization. And this is truly where we design everything original for you. And this would be very much like what we did for Duke. So those 6 custom books in the end that we created for them, all unique content, that was all IP that's now owned by Duke Energy, and it is customized to your specific audience. Okay, so, when we gave this presentation to Duke at the very beginning, this is very much what we explained. And you can see that ultimately in the end, we ended up with kind of a mix of a lot of different things. And so I really wanted to just kind of showcase this and show you how, this is basic, process that we would take to go through and create a custom learning program, but there's really no solution that fits all. So before I hand it back over to Karine, and she's going to open up the call to questions, I just want to cover one question. So I do this presentation quite often for our clients, and the big one I always get, the big question is always about cost of these types of projects. So this graphic is a great example as, we move from kind of left to right, where it progresses and it affects the cost. So at the left-hand side, the effort for us to actually create the topic-based customization isn't as much. But as you move to the right, to that unique custom development, the effort is more, the time involved is more. So, that definitely affects the cost. But I truly want to understand everybody's, their goals, their challenges, what the right solution is for you in terms of coming up with quotes. So unfortunately, there isn't an answer to cost, but hopefully this gives you an idea of the range of the offerings that we can give.